Record to the cloud. All right. Hi, folks. Welcome, welcome. My name is Kelsey Ellum. I'm an assistant director at the Center for Civic Leadership, and welcome to Workshop Wednesday. This is part of a series of events that the CCL is hosting over the summer to really help prepare you for applying for fellowships. So every Friday, we'll be sharing information about different aspects of the fellowship application process. And then every Wednesday, we'll spend a little bit more time on these topics and really give you a chance to come with your questions and drafts and really workshop and get some live feedback on your applications. So today, the focus of our Workshop Wednesday is determining your fellowship fit. So it's early in the summer. We know many of you are just starting to think about fellowships. Many of you that I've spoken with know that you want to do a fellowship, but you're not really sure which one yet. So at this workshop, we're really going to present some different things for you to think about and reflect on and help you kind of narrow down what kind of fellowship might be a good fit for you. So I was explaining to Gabriella earlier, we're going to actually take time in this half an hour to 45 minutes that we have together to really reflect on these series of questions that I'll present. So if you're watching the recording, there will be moments of silence. You can pause the video after each section of questions, and I'll just be cueing you to actually write down what's coming to mind for you. And I really encourage you to take this time to do that active reflection. And looks like we have another friend joining us. Hi, Anne. All right. Welcome, Anne. How's it going? We're just getting started. So yeah, I was just saying, if you have like an open document ready to go, or a piece of paper, a journal or something, for some active reflection during our time together, I think that'll be really useful so that you can come to your next meeting with a CCL advisor with some ideas ready to talk about. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And make it big. Okay, I think y'all can see that. All right, so let's dive in. First, I want to distinguish different types of opportunities that fellowships can provide for you. So you can use fellowships to pursue graduate study and receive a master's degree, in some cases outside of the United States. You can also use fellowships to do independent travel and exploration around something that is not necessarily related to your academic and career goals. And you can use fellowships to engage in research in another country. So usually research around a topic that you identify and kind of propose a self-designed plan to undertake alongside an organization or an individual doing this work in another country. So just keep these three buckets in mind as we're working through the reflection question. And we have another friend joining us, Hafsa, all the way from Mexico. Hi, Hafsa, welcome. Okay, so our first set of reflection questions here. For any type of fellowship, you need to have some kind of guiding question to guide your fellowship experience. Hi, Anna. Welcome, welcome.
Hello.
So some guiding question that you're interested in exploring, some topic that you're focused on. So let's start really broad. Let's zoom out. What are you interested in? What excites you? What do you get pumped up to talk about any chance you get? You might not know exactly what you want to do, or you might have so many interests that it's kind of difficult to narrow down. That's usually the boat that I'm in. I am embracing being a generalist and having lots of interests. I think that's a good thing, actually. But in this point in the game, we really just want you to start articulating what your interests are. So as you're brainstorming, I want you to think about things that have really piqued your interest in classes and other experiences that you've had at Rice. Um, Maybe different skills or topics that appeal to you as a future career. So when you think about your time after Rice, what are you doing? What kinds of things are you involved in? How are you spending your time? What kinds of people are you working with? That again sounds really interesting and appealing to you. I think another angle that you can take for this is thinking about topics that you haven't gotten a chance to explore yet. Maybe there's something that you've always wanted to know more about, but you just haven't gotten a chance to really dig into it. Or maybe Rice doesn't offer any classes about this particular thing that you're super interested in. And also think about things that the people around you are interested in. So maybe you have a favorite professor or a mentor that you're close with that is doing some work that when you see them getting excited about it, you get excited about it too, right? So what are the people around you doing? So just we're gonna, like I said, this is gonna be active reflection. I'm gonna set a timer and I'm gonna start with 3 minutes. And if you have a piece of paper or a Word doc open on your laptop, just start jotting down the first things that come to your mind, things that you're interested in exploring, things that have gotten you excited, whether it's through your classes or other experiences with student organizations at Rice or other experiences in your life. All right. So I'm curious, again, no pressure since we are recording this session, but I'm curious if anybody wants to share out some things that they jotted down, some interests that they have. And remember, this can be messy and unclear at this point. We're just in the brainstorming phase.
Mine are pretty easy just because they're pretty broad, but it's like writing and reading, and then also like exphradic writing, like writing on art, and then personal essay. Those are mine.
I love it. Thanks for sharing, Anne. Anybody else want to share some initial interests? Did any? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I can go. So I wrote like in terms of like classes and topics that interest me, like environment and public health, specifically in terms of environment and conservation efforts, and then in terms of public health, how certain policy decisions affect people and health equity. How those two are related, no clue, but those are the two things that get me, I guess, that I'm really interested in.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Gabriella. Let me see, we have something in the chat. History and archiving, public infrastructure and urbanism, forms of air and waste and water pollution. Okay, there we go. Cool, thank you for sharing, Hafsa. Yeah, I think all of you shared things that are, I think, primarily academic. Maybe I'm projecting here, but I feel like a lot of those things are things that you learn from your classes or other things. But don't, I would encourage you to also not overlook those personal interests too, like the things that might not have a direct connection to your academics. Because I feel like anytime that you can pull in something that you're passionate about into your fellowship application, it just gives the selection committee more rationale and shows your motivation to really go abroad and do what you want to do. So even those personal interests, sometimes we can weave those in there and it can make it stronger. Okay, let's keep moving along. So let's think about where you want to go, right? Many of these fellowships offer you an opportunity to travel internationally. Some support domestic opportunities in the US, but most are international. But either way, you kind of have to think about where you want to be for this experience. So think about things like urban versus rural. Do you want to be in a huge metropolitan city, or do you want to be a little bit removed from that in a more remote and rural environment? Do you want to be in a primarily English-speaking location, or do you want to use foreign language skills that you've already developed, or develop new language skills in a foreign language that you've never spoken before? Kind of along those lines, do you want it to be a familiar place where you have been before or know a little bit about, or do you want to go somewhere totally new, totally different from anything you've ever experienced before? I think another thing to think about is what kind of resources you want to be available to you. So if some of those interests that came out with the last prompt have really place-based components to them, that might be something to think about. Like if you're really interested in something that involves going to a very specific region of the world, or going to a museum that's in this one city, or interacting with a particular population of people, really think about what that place can offer you in relation to exploring your interests, as well as other things like if you know that you really need an in-person mental health counselor while you're abroad for a year, going to a small village in remote Mexico might not be the best option for you. So just think about like some of those other considerations, right? But maybe if you're studying biodiversity or conservation or something like that, going to that rural village might be the best fit for you to really get outside of the city. Lastly, think about networks that you already have or want to build. So again, who do you know that's working in these interest areas, in these spaces? Where are they going? And kind of follow the work, right? Maybe there's some regional hub or some city or location or university that is particularly kind of renowned for exploring the things that you're interested in. And maybe that's where you need to go to be a part of that network. So you can kind of follow where the networks already are, or you can kind of determine what networks you want to build for your career. So if you're interested in working with immigration issues, you might want to go to the country, like the country of origin for the immigrant population that you want to work with. Like that makes a lot of sense to really like understand that population of people that you want to work with in your future career. So that's a network that you want to build, and that can help determine where you want to go. So let's hear what's coming to mind. I'll give you another few minutes here to just try to narrow down a location. If you don't know, like a country or city or town, maybe just a world region that is calling your name, and then kind of narrowing it down from there. All right. So let's come back together here. Any light bulbs going off for folks as you're thinking about location? I'm gonna pick, oh yeah, go ahead, Anne.
I guess maybe I don't know that much about like the whole fellowship process, et cetera, but I kind of feel like I would go anywhere if they're gonna give me money to go somewhere. Like I would just go wherever they suggested I go.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that openness. I tend to think like that too, like I'll go anywhere. I will say for most of the fellowships, there are, I'm trying to think if there's any that have a specific location. I know like the Amici Award, you have to be going somewhere in Europe but even then, you can choose what country you want to go to in Europe. So I think most of the fellowships, well, there's the UK graduate study ones, which are obviously all in the UK, but most of the other fellowships, they have a list of eligible countries, and you kind of decide where you want to go. And I think even if you have that kind of like I'll go anywhere mentality in the application, you need to convince them, that the selection committee, that you've really taken a lot of time to choose a very specific location. I know that can be hard, but if they can take your application essay and replace the country that you want to go to with any other country, that's too broad. That's not good. That's too general, right? They want it to be very specific to where you want to go and why you chose that specific place, if that makes sense. So yeah, and the CCL can help you really develop that narrative around where you want to go. I'm going to pick on our two students who are currently abroad, Hafsa and Anna. I'm curious if you're thinking about returning to a place that you currently are, Mexico and Brazil, or if you want to go somewhere different. Have you given any thought to that?
I've actually been really conflicted on that. I think I really want, so I'm also learning Spanish, and I'd say that I'm pretty fluent, but I think, I guess I've kind of plateaued, and I think to really get like a firm grasp on the language, I need to be immersed. So I'd love to work in a Spanish speaking country, but also kind of my primary area of interest and what I want to pursue research on is Brazil. So I think the place that makes the most sense would be to return to Brazil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. I feel like that's always a struggle for me too, is like, do I go somewhere totally new, or do I go somewhere where I've been before? And both have their trade-offs.
Yeah, I think I'm in a similar boat where I really like the work that I'm doing here, and I really like the broad theme of it also, and it's somewhat similar to what I want to do in the future also, because I'm working right now on water pollution and solutions to that, which is like, and my interest is in environmental anthropology. But on the other hand, I think I also am like thinking of going somewhere within like Asia to like see like how Asian countries are like responding to air or water pollution. Or I also have an interest in like post-colonialism. So South Asia, for example, is a good example of that. So I'm like thinking between those and here. So I think I'm okay with both old or new, like familiar or non-familiar, as long as it's something I'm passionate about, and as long as I can see it becoming like a long project that I can invest myself in for like a significant period of time, as opposed to like a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a great segue to our next section, length of time. Before I jump into this, I do want to make sure that I say that the Wagner Scholarship, which is one of the awards that is usually like mid to long term self-proposed research, it is possible to do multiple locations with that one. So if you're really stuck between two different places, and maybe your proposal is kind of like a comparative study between two different countries, students have definitely done that before, so that's an option as well. Okay, so length of time. We have so many different options here. Some of they're all different, right? Some of the fellowships offer short-term things that are like 1 to 2 weeks. Some of them are more midterm, something like 8 weeks that you can do over the summer, and some are long-term, up to a year, that students usually do after they graduate Rice. So I think for this one, think about how long you want this experience to be, but also how long you feasibly have to do this, right? Like everybody's situation is different. Think about how this fellowship experience really fits in with your other plans in your life and what you want to do before and after. So I think a short and midterm opportunity that you might do over winter break or the summer, that gives you the benefit of coming back to Rice after your time abroad and really building off of what you do with that fellowship experience. Whereas like a longer term experience that you would do after graduation, really you can work towards that, and it'll give you really substantial professional experience to kind of launch you into your career after graduation. So I don't know if that makes sense, just kind of thinking about what skills and experiences you want to develop before you go abroad with this fellowship and after, and how those things might affect how long you're away. It sounds like most of you are thinking long term, but tell me if I'm wrong. Any initial thoughts coming to mind with this question of length? Is anybody thinking something more short term, like winter break or summer?
Well, I was wondering if like, okay, so when they're awarding funding, is it like if you've had previous fellowships in the past, if you did a short or like medium length fellowship over winter break or something, is that helpful on your application for getting long-term funding like post-grad?
Yeah, I think it certainly can be. I think showing that you've had some previous experience being abroad and doing like independent work on things is definitely a plus. Especially if you can kind of like use that short-term experience to like inspire new questions for a longer term experience. So like our two Lowenstern students here are abroad for the summer. Maybe there's some questions that are coming up for them while they're abroad this summer that they could turn into a bigger research proposal for a Fulbright or a Wagner later on down the line. So I think it helps to have those short-term experiences, but I would also say, like, depending on where you are in your 4 years at Rice, if you haven't had those things abroad necessarily, you've probably had those things as a student at Rice, right? Like some other student organization or research project that you're a part of with transferable skills that can help you with the long-term fellowship. So it's not necessarily a requirement, but I would say it helps. It's a great question, Anne. Okay. In the interest of time, I'm going to keep moving. I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of this distinction between internal Rice fellowships and nationally external opportunities. So I'm just going to kind of break this down because I feel like sometimes the words that we use to describe these things can be kind of confusing. So basically there's like awards that are nationally competitive, meaning that any student from any university in the United States can apply for these awards, and they're administered by an external organization. So things like the Fulbright Award, the Watson Award, what else? The Boren Award, like these awards that Rice supports you with your application, but ultimately it goes to an external selection committee, and you're in the running with students from all over the country. And then you have the internal Rice fellowships, and these are awards that are only open to Rice students to apply for. The winners are selected by a committee of Rice faculty who review your application and interview you. So there's trade-offs with these two distinctions, right? And you don't necessarily have to choose just one. Sometimes you can put your name in the hat for both of them. But there's just some different things to consider. So as far as networks, if you get one of the nationally competitive external opportunities, something like Fulbright, you're in the door with a network of thousands of other Fulbrighters. It comes with a lot of benefits. It comes with the name recognition, right? If you put something like Fulbright on your resume, people outside of Rice are going to know what that is. Whereas like a Wagner scholarship, you might have to explain to somebody what it is. So just think about those networks that you'll be a part of. And flexibility, I think, is another thing that is a trade-off, right? Like an internal Rice Award is going to be a lot more flexible. We're going to it's more tailored, it's more niche, because there's fewer of you, right? So you can work with me and the other people at the CCL to really build the experience as you want it. And we'll support you with that because we have the capacity to do that. With a larger external award, you might not have that same flexibility. They might have very strict kind of parameters of what you can and can't do with your fellowship experience. And then, of course, the acceptance rate. I know that's something that's on everybody's mind. Obviously, just numbers wise, you probably have a better chance of getting an internal award just because you're only competing with folks from Rice. But we do have a pretty strong track record with winners of the external awards too. I will say, I know this sounds cheesy, but even if you don't get whatever award you're applying for, I've heard from almost every single student that I've worked with that just the process of applying is still really beneficial. Just the process of synthesizing and articulating what you care about, what you're passionate about, what you're interested in, what your story is so beneficial for everything else to come. Grad school applications, job interviews, cover letters, all of that. So it can be a really beneficial process, even if there's not an actual fellowship award at the end of it. Okay, so I want to talk about, now that you've hopefully reflected a little bit about these different aspects to think about, kind of narrowing it down to an actual award that you want to apply for. And this is where I could talk for hours on end, and I'm not going to, but we have this fellowships resource Canvas page that I can put the link for in the chat. So I'm gonna actually go to it right now and kind of walk y'all through it here. You are probably already on it, which is good. Okay. So let me go back to sharing my screen. Okay, so this is our fellowships Canvas page. And once you join the Canvas page, you'll see this homepage. I always go straight to this link right here, direct links to all internal and nominated fellowships. And once you're there, you can see basically links and lists of all of these different awards. And once you click into one, let's just go to the Goliard one. You can read a little bit about the award. You can see the deadline, the funding, the location options, and length of time. So you can start to kind of see the different aspects that we talked about today. So this one is short term. You can go anywhere, and this is one of those personal independent travel things, like personal exploration. This is not necessarily a research award. And this is an external award. The Goliard is offered by this Goliard Board of Governors, which is an external organization. But we also have an internal award called the Bratson that is only for Rice students. So you can kind of get the best of both worlds with this award. Let's go back to our list here. So you can just poke around with each one. I know it's kind of overwhelming, but I think as you poke through these, if you can have a sense of what you're looking for and come to a advising session with a CCL advisor, we can help you narrow this down even more because we're a little bit more familiar with all of these options. So you might not have like a clear answer right away, but we can help you get there. What else did I want to say? Okay, we talked about the fellowships. There's also this this database that is called ProFellow. If you're on the Canvas page or talk to a CCL advisor and you're not really finding anything that's like a really good fit for you, there's like a ton of other fellowships, some that I have never even heard of, but there's just a lot of money out there to be had. So this is like an online database of fellowship awards. And even if I have never heard of it before, I can help you apply for it and help you with your application all the same. So check out this database if you want even more options. And these are our advising hours and our beautiful advising team. So we have advising hours at 3 different points throughout the day on 4 out of the 5 days of the week. And these happen throughout the whole summer. So this is a great time to get like some one-on-one support with folks. I'll share the link to our advising hours in the chat. Because like I said, if you're like, even if you've narrowed it down to like 5 awards or something, we can help you get it down to 1 or 2 if you meet with an advisor. So yeah, I would say those are kind of like the next steps are taking the answers that you've jotted down to the reflection questions today to a meeting with a CCL advisor, poking around on that Canvas page, and keeping an eye out for more resources. So like I said, we're having this series throughout the summer of workshops. We'll have some coming up later this summer about finding a host affiliation, which is a big part of any research award. We also have a few like writing workshops once you actually get to drafting your application essays and preparing for interviews. We'll have a workshop about that as well. I also want to make sure that you all have seen the interest form. So even if you're not sure which one you want to apply for yet, I highly recommend filling out this interest form because that gets you on our email list and it just gets you in our database of students to support through the process. So we can help hold you accountable if you share your information through this interest form. Okay, I know I've been talking a lot. I'm curious how you all are feeling, what questions are still on your mind, any revelations or lingering thoughts that you want to share.
So obviously the seminars are kind of like group based. Are you guys meeting with, my goodness.
There you
Did
are.
I sorry, I don't know what happened. Are you guys meeting with individuals this summer? Like, are you having one-on-ones to get started?
Yes, yeah, so those are,
If so,
sorry, I missed the last part of that.
how would you find a sign up for that if so?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the second link that I put in the chat there, those advising hours, those are drop-in hours, which means that you might be in the room with like other people like this, depending on how many people come to the advising hours. But like sometimes I'll just have like one person at a time. And if those times don't work for you, or if it's like a super busy advising hour, you can usually reach out to the CCL person that you want to meet with and say, hey, like I can't make it during your advising hour. Do you have any other time in your schedule to meet with me one-on-one? And we can get half an hour on our calendars. And I personally like to have like several check-in points throughout the summer. So I don't recommend just like one meeting and then you're done. Like maybe one meeting every few weeks to kind of like check in on your progress as you're working on your drafts or whatever. So yes, in addition to these group workshops, we'll also have the one-on-one advising that's available 4 out of 5 days of the week. And another thing I should mention is if you just want written feedback on your drafts, once you've started writing the essays, you can just submit those on the Canvas page, and we can just take a look, give you comments in the Word doc, and send it back. So if you prefer that, in addition to or instead of meeting with someone and getting verbal feedback, that's an option too. A list of fellowships that are available for international students. I don't know that we have a list, Hafsa, but I can help narrow that down for you. I'm pretty sure all of the internal Rice Awards are open to international students. So like the Amici, I'm throwing a lot of names at you, but Wagner. Yeah, thank you, Gabriella. Thanks for coming. All of the internal ones are open to international students. The external ones, I'd have to look more closely because I know most of the ones funded by the State Department are only for US citizens. I'd have to look more closely. But I can definitely get back to you with some more information about that. Other thoughts, questions, concerns? Okay. Well, thank you all for coming to this. I hope it was helpful to just kind of like take some intentional time to really think about what you want out of this experience, and just keep reflecting, keep ruminating, keep sleeping on it. And I promise you'll get closer to having more clarity about what exactly you want to do in the coming weeks. And like I said, we'll continue to have resources for you and advising hours and get you on track for these deadlines that are coming up in the fall. All right, I will end it there.
Thank you.
Yeah,